Well, it's 2024 already, and I thought for the first episode this year I would just recap a couple of stories that caught my attention coming up to the end of 2023, and also give you an update on the whole handlebar mustache thing and my challenge to viewers to try to get us to 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. Hello, my name's Nicholas Wansbutter. I'm a lawyer in Stratford, Ontario, Canada, and welcome to Don't Talk TV, and welcome to 2024. Sorry we didn't have an episode last week, but I was taking some much-needed downtime during Christmas holidays, which leads me especially to wish our viewers a very Merry Christmas. Better late than never, although we did do a post to our social media wishing all of you that. And that also brings me to one of the stories near the end of last year worth discussing, I thought, is the Canadian Human Rights Commission commenting on Christmas, and did they say that Christmas in and of itself is racist? Now, I think this is within the purview of Don't Talk TV because the Canadian Human Rights Commission is a quasi-judicial organization. They have courts, they have trials, and you might benefit from having a lawyer if you ever get hauled in front of them. So let's have a look at what they said. There's been a lot said in Parliament. The province of Quebec passed a motion in their National Assembly in defense of Christmas. So let's have a look at what was actually said, because of course the Canadian Human Rights Commission, once it did become a bit of a scandal, came out saying, no, we never said that. So let's look at what they said after. Let's look at what they said in the discussion paper. So I've got here open a page from the Canadian Human Rights Commission, and this is from November the 30th, where they're saying, of course Christmas is not racist, we never said it was. That's basically what the article says. We'll just look quickly, but they say the necessary Christmas is an important and time-honored tradition in Canada. It's both spiritually and culturally significant for millions of people in the country, Christians and non-Christians alike. But then they say, that, alluding to what they said in their paper, we must face the reality that religious intolerance exists to properly address how to better include them. So that's why they're talking about this paper. And let's look at the discussion paper. This is published in October, discussion paper on religious intolerance. So let's look at what the Canadian Human Rights Commission actually said. So under the heading here of religious intolerance as a form of discrimination in Canada, in the second paragraph here, says that discrimination against religious minorities in Canada is grounded in Canada's history of colonialism. This history manifests itself in present-day systematic religious discrimination. An obvious example is statutory holidays in Canada. Statutory holidays related to Christianity, including Christmas and Easter, are the only Canadian statutory holidays linked to religious holy days. As a result, non-Christians may need to request special accommodations to observe their holy days and other times of the year where their religion requires them to abstain from work. So viewers can judge for themselves whether they're saying Christmas is racist. I think it's clear that they certainly say giving people time off for Christmas is racist. Or to be a bit more specific, they're saying that it's racist, it's institutional racism, given that only Christianity gets a couple of the religious holidays off. And they act as if this is some great oppression that people need to ask for religious accommodation. Well, I don't see how that is oppressive or racist at all, because those people will be granted their religious accommodation. They'll be given the days off if they ask for them. And if they aren't, then the Human Rights Commission, be it provincial or federal, is going to make sure that the employer does. And even Christians have to ask for religious accommodation. Christmas and Easter are not the only Christian holy days for most Christians. Certainly for me, there's a number of other days of obligation that I'm not allowed to work, or unless it's absolutely unavoidable. And back when I was a prosecutor, I did ask for accommodation, and it wasn't a big deal. I didn't feel oppressed and downtrodden. So I think by singling out Christmas and Easter, although interestingly it was only Christmas that all the politicians jumped to the defense of, I think you can see how that impression was arrived at from reading that document and the way it's written. So I don't know that they're entirely accurate with saying we never said that Christmas was racist, but you decide for yourselves. Now, that brings me to a little bit of a recap of how Don't Talk TV did in 2023. I will look at another story from last year, specifically Maxime Bernier's conviction in Saskatchewan. But first, let's talk about, will the handlebar mustache be making a return? No, it won't. So, if there were some of you who are holding off on subscribing because you didn't want to see me grow that, you can subscribe now. You're safe to subscribe now. We never made it to 10,000. In fact, the subscriber numbers for Don't Talk TV have not gone up in over a year. So I want to just take a quick look at that. I'll show you my analytics. And I'd be interested in viewers' thoughts on, is Don't Talk TV being shadow banned? Are there other explanations for this? Is there something that Don't Talk TV should be doing differently that might explain why we're losing viewers and how to retain viewers? Because we're actually losing viewers, not gaining them over time. So let's take a look at the analytics. So here you've got our analytics. So as you can see, over the last 28 days, we're negative 17 subscribers. Now, if I change this to over the last 365 days, we're up 40 over the year, but really 40 is not a whole lot when you consider that we're just stuck at the same 7,000 subscribers, or just over 7,000 subscribers. I also find interesting that the estimated revenue, if I had ads turned on, is $6.07. That doesn't match up with people I've talked to about how much money they get off of advertisement with fewer subscribers than me. But you can see right here, 7,741 subscribers. So this time a year ago, we were just under 7,700, a net gain of 43. So, and you can see, I mean, it's very stable. Here is when I first announced the mustache thing. We had a number of new subscribers, 1,552. But we're constantly losing at the same time. So, 7,741, we didn't really get close to 10,000. The needle didn't budge. So 2022, we increased by 2.9 thousand. So we were around 5,000 at the beginning of 2022, but we really haven't moved since then. So I'm not totally sure how to explain that. I know a lot of people think maybe we're being shadow banned. Here's some pictures from my volunteer PR guy's Richard's feed. You can see some of our videos are being blocked, allegedly due to inappropriate content. I know the video that's being blocked there, that's the one where I discussed the riots in France after that young man was killed during a traffic stop after trying to flee the scene with police right there. Interesting addendum to that one. I commented that guaranteed this would happen to anyone if they tried that. Well, interestingly enough, I, in the last couple of months, was retained by an individual who was shot multiple times by police but survived in a similar scenario where he wasn't the driver though, but the driver tried fleeing the scene while police were trying to stop them. So I say that has nothing to do with racism in my view, because there's no racial aspect to the case I've just mentioned. That said, that brings us to Maxime Bernier. So I put up on the screen here his Twitter, where he comments on Canadian justice in quotes. He says, "When I challenged Trudeau's travel ban on the unvaxxed, 2 courts dismissed it, saying the situation has changed and it's now moot. But 2.5 years after having met more than 10 people at a rally in Saskatchewan, a judge finds me guilty of violating a public health order that is equally moot." Important distinction to point out in this case is that the travel ban that Mr. Bernier challenged in court, and the challenge was dismissed because of mootness, that was challenging the Quarantine Act regulations that essentially banned unvaccinated Canadians from traveling. Now, that's a totally different law from the Saskatchewan provincial law against gatherings where Mr. Bernier was convicted. So that had nothing to do with the travel ban. That was a gathering ban. That was a fight over a curfew. So I don't know exactly the ins and outs of what happened in Mr. Bernier's case. I infer from the fact that he was convicted that his charter challenge of that curfew, of that stay-at-home order, was defeated. I don't know why, but I think it's important to keep in mind that he wasn't convicted under the law that was being challenged, and then the challenge was deemed moot. Now, that said, there are still individuals who are facing charges in various courts across the country for traveling without using a ArriveCAN, without being vaccinated, and received significant tickets. So that proves that it's not moot. These cases are still ongoing, but I mean, that's the situation. I know Mr. Bernier is following up on that. He's appealing that decision of mootness, and hopefully is successful. And hopefully Don't Talk TV will continue to grow in 2024. Even if it doesn't, for whatever reason, we're going to keep plugging away. We're going to keep trying to bring you the best content we have. And I hope everyone has a great 2024. And I'm not going to make any predictions, though, because I'm done making predictions. Things are just too unpredictable and strange and crazy since I started this channel. So we'll just have to hold on and wait and see what happens. This video, of course, is not legal advice. If you need legal advice, you can call a lawyer, can call another lawyer, myself. My contact information is listed below. If you have show topics you'd like to see us cover, please leave a comment or send an email to the email address listed below. And if you found this video at all interesting, helpful, or informative, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing.